Greetings and salutations, YouTube family and friends. T-Rav Vlogs here. What's up, guys? Today, I'd like to elaborate on a story I alluded to in my previous video, my AGDQ review, and talk about my flight home from Virginia, which was, let's just say, an experience. I want to start off by saying that I'm not going to name the specific airline because I have a funny feeling that this particular problem with the airline is more of a universally known issue instead of just airline specific. So I'm going to leave the name out of it, but know that I'm pretty sure that most airlines do have this issue. Now, my flight to Virginia was absolutely perfect. The size of the jet was just fine. I had lots of room to sprawl out. There wasn't overcrowding issues. The staff was nice, the flight was fast, it was a really enjoyable experience, and I really looked forward to the flight home to have that same experience. Sadly, I did not get that same experience. Go figure. So what exactly happened? When I got to my gate, there was a message up on the screen that said, "Your flight has been overbooked. We're looking for volunteers to take another flight back to St. Louis at a later time." They eventually elaborated and said, "We need volunteers to take a flight the next day at 8 a.m. We will give you a $500 flight voucher, a stay in a hotel, and a meal voucher so you can have a meal while you're there." Seems like a pretty sweet deal, but like me, a lot of people had to get back to St. Louis that night. Personally, I had work the next day, so I couldn't just wait for the next flight and, "Oh, sorry, I'm not going to be there." That's not how it works. So as the flight got closer, they kept making the announcement. "We'll offer this, we'll offer this." Finally, as we're boarding, they upped the $500 travel voucher to $700. There were still no takers for this particular package. So we board the plane, and I notice as I'm looking around, every seat's full, but there's not an issue where, "Hey, that should be my seat. Why are you in my seat?" That didn't happen. So, overbooking? It certainly didn't look like it. Well, the plane that they put us on was barely above a sardine can with wings. This sucker was small, and for the crowd that it was expecting, I really would have thought that they might have gone with a different plane. I'm not exactly sure how they decide which plane they're going to use for a specific flight, but I really think it was a poor decision to pick this particular smaller airliner instead of a larger one that would be able to accommodate us better. So while on the plane, we sat there at the terminal for a little longer than we should have, when one of the grounds crew came up and said, "We're too heavy to take off, and we need to have 3 volunteers off this plane now to take a later flight." So now it wasn't that they were overbooked, it was that we were too heavy to take off. Is that the same thing? I don't know, but it sounds a little bit different if you ask me. So when no one volunteered for this particular deal, they gave us the ultimatum. They said, "Fine, we're going to take the 3 people who paid the least amount for their tickets and kick you off the plane." How is that fair? You try to get the best deal you can on plane tickets, because let's face it, guys, air travel is not cheap. That's just a fact of life. If you're going to fly somewhere, it's going to cost you a pretty penny. So you want to get the best deal that you can, yes? Well, now you have to be paranoid that if your flight is on time and everything is going fine, you still may get kicked off your flight because the airline overbooked. To make matters worse, the 3 people that they picked were international travelers. One nice lady from France, another one I believe from Africa, judging by the design on the back of her jacket, and the third one was an American soldier who had been stationed in Germany, who had to go to St. Louis to go to one of the military bases there for training. That's messed up. Luckily, the Army soldier gave his papers to the people in charge here and said, "Listen, I have to get back on that plane, because if I don't show up at base on time, I'm AWOL, and that's very bad." So he got back on the plane, but sadly that still left 2 passengers off their flight and forced to take another one. Now I know they did everything they could to make the deal sweet and give them everything that they could to make it better, but when I talked to the soldier after we landed, he told me that the airline gave them nothing and basically said, well, since you didn't take our packages before, you're out. You have to find accommodations until your next flight leaves. Now, I'm hoping that's not the case, because if that was the case, that is very messed up and completely unfair. Again, you're looking for the best deal for your flight, and then to suddenly be kicked off because you got the best deal because of an oversight from the airline? No, that is unacceptable. And I know, well, what if the flight gets canceled? Well, what if the flight's delayed? There's really no guarantee that your flight's going to be there when you're there. And I understand that, yes. But in this case, the flight was on time, everything was as it should have been. It was no fault of anyone's, yet the passengers still had to suffer for it. But it wasn't every passenger. If a flight's canceled, that's every passenger that has to deal with that issue. If a flight's delayed, that's every passenger that has to deal with that issue. But with this issue, you paid the least, get off my plane. I just think that it's quite unfair, and for those people, they're not going to want to take that airline ever again. And like I said, this seems to be a universal issue. I've heard, well, the airline's overbooked, so if anybody flakes out on them, then they don't have an empty plane and they can still make money. Well, that's understandable. But if these guys got the best deal, they didn't pay full price for the ticket anyway, and you're offering them $500, $700, a hotel stay, a meal voucher. How does that put you ahead? I don't understand. Now personally, I don't travel all that often, so this is the first time I've ever run into that issue. For you guys, if you've traveled a lot, you've probably seen this happen a few times. So what's your take on it? Do you think it's fair? Do you think that the airline's doing everything they can to fix this issue? Or do you think that they're just throwing caution to the wind and throwing customer service down the toilet? I'm really anxious to hear what you guys have to say about it. Give me your take on it. Let me know down in the comments below how you would have reacted to the situation. I got lucky. I wasn't one of the people who got kicked off the plane, but I can imagine if I was, I would be completely irate because I had somewhere to be and I had to be there right now. Airlines, what's the deal? Is it really that difficult to keep track of how many people you put on a plane, especially for the type of plane that you're using for your flight? I don't know personally because I don't deal with that, but I'm curious. How difficult is it? So that's really all I have to say about that. I just wanted to share my story and give my 2 cents. So again, let me know what you guys think in the comments about this whole situation. How would you have reacted if it was you? So until next time, I'll talk to you soon, and take care. Bye-bye.